Let's listen.
These victims and their families in this community, and your thoughts and prayers, they're very much welcome and very much needed during these troubling times. The Texas Rangers, DPS personnel, the FBI, ATF, and Wilson County Sheriff's Office, and several other agencies continue to work continuously over the past 2 days. Yeah, I'd like to mention something about the Unified Command. There are many agencies involved in this investigation, and that we are unified into one team with one mission. And in my opinion, this investigation right here is what right looks like. Every agency has their own expertise, and we're using that expertise to do a very thorough investigation. As far as the investigation, we've collected a substantial amount of evidence to piece together what happened here. Bodies have been removed and transported to the medical examiner's office for autopsy. A substantial amount of evidence, physical evidence, has been collected, including hundreds of shell casings, more than 15 magazines, 30-round capacity magazines have been recovered. The suspect vehicle has been processed with the suspect's body inside. Multiple interviews have been conducted in numerous cities and other states. Victims have been identified and next of kin have been notified. What needs to be done from this point? We need to finalize the list identifying the deceased victims and complete the notifications of next of kins. We plan to have that done and release the victims' names as soon as possible. Tonight, we hope to finish the evidence collection process, and we'll begin forensic mapping and trajectory analysis tomorrow. What I can tell you is today, the autopsy was performed on the shooter, and if you notice, I used shooter instead of the suspect's name. We do not want to glorify him and what he's done. But the autopsy was conducted this morning, and what I can tell you is he sustained 3 gunshot wounds. 2 gunshot wounds were from the armed citizen. One of those was in the leg and the other one was in the torso. And he had a third gunshot wound, which the medical examiner described as being consistent with being self-inflicted. There's no change regarding the victims. We still have 4 in serious condition, 10 in critical condition, and the number of deceased has not changed. Texas DPS Victim Services continue working with the victims and their families through this horrible tragedy. And with that, I'd like to thank you all for coming. We'll entertain any questions. I believe the FBI Special Agent in charge has some brief comments. Chris Combs.
Thanks, sir.
Where was the third one?
Good afternoon. So I just want to commend the commander from DPS for not mentioning the shooter's name. We certainly don't want to glorify what has happened there. There's a couple of campaigns out there. One is called Don't Name Them, where we don't talk about the shooter. We don't see his name out there in the press. So it doesn't encourage other people to do horrific acts like this. I can tell you that the scene in there is horrific, is not even a word to describe it. I certainly want to commend the first responders who went in there from fire, EMS, and the police department, and the FBI and the DPS Ranger evidence teams that are in there now taking care of this. I think that's an important part we should all always remember. I know there's a lot of questions about the FBI NICS system and how did the person get the weapons. I can tell you that for the 4 purchases that he made, the NICS system did their required checks, and there was no prohibitive information in the systems that we checked that said that he could not have purchased that firearm. There are 3 checks that are conducted. One is of NCIC, one is a criminal history check, and another one is an indices on the NICS system itself. So in all 3 of those databases, there was not information that we would have said was prohibitive for that man to get the firearm. Thank you very much.
The question was, the third gunshot wound was to the head, the one that was self-inflicted.
Was that a failure of the U.S. military to not inform you guys that you should get in?
So obviously, everybody's taking a look at what happened there. I believe the Air Force released a statement about 30 minutes ago, so we're working with them to try to figure out what happened there.
There was the shooter's grandmother-in-law among the victims?
I'm sorry?
There was the shooter's grandmother-in-law among the victims?
She was not.
Was he fired from the Army?
I'm sorry.
Was he fired from the Army?
Can you answer that? Was he fired? We know he was released from the Army, and we'd have to refer to the Air Force on that. It was the Air Force.
Where was the self-inflicted gunshot inflicted?
To the head.
There have been unconfirmed reports that the suspect may have taken a hostage in the car. It's been floating around on CNN and other outlets.
You've been watching a live news conference in Sutherland Springs. DPS and FBI officials there briefing. That is